Okay.
This was our first river cruise and trip to Portugal. The major part of this trip spanned the Douro River from Porto past the Spanish border. After 14 hours of flight from Newark, we landed in Lisbon. We were happy to meet Viking employees at the Lisbon airport. They transported us to the Tivoli Hotel. After getting a little settled, we walked to an exotic animal museum. There was an interesting display of unusual animals. Then we went to our hotel, took a nap, and had a wonderful dinner on the ninth floor of the hotel. The view was a lot like the views we have seen back home in Seattle, and it was fun having a wonderful dinner and seeing those views. The food was served artistically and it tasted top rate. We really enjoyed it. After a wonderful buffet at the hotel, we took a city tour of Lisbon. We saw mosaic tiles so intricate and in abundance as walkways. We visited maps and murals of exploration of conquest, and the Bellum Tower introduced Mandolin architecture to the world. Geronimo's Monastery is also a Mandolin architect masterpiece and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This was a university at Lisbon. Some more of Geronimo's Monastery. The gold statues and Mandolin architect inside. We saw the Ponce de Leon's burial tomb. After leaving that, we toured the old quarters and walked hilly, narrow, labyrinth streets with inviting cafes and craft shops. We had sturdy shoes, so the cobblestone streets were not so bad. We returned to the hotel and got dressed for a taste of Lisbon, of an unforgettable evening of food and song. We had a rustic cuisine in a nightclub show of folk music. It's called Fado. It reminded me of soul music. We couldn't understand the words, but the performers gave it their heart. The next day, we took a bus ride up to Porto, where we will be catching our boat or our ship. It's sometimes called Porto. It's the second largest city in Portugal. It is known for its rich region for port wine. Here, that evening, we had the captain's dinner, and it was very, very good. There were specialties by our chef, and we were able to meet the captain and many of his crew. The desserts and the appetizers were artistically prepared, and we maybe shouldn't have had the desserts, but we did. Everything was delicious. Then, after a big meal, we went up topside and looked at the view. Porto is known for its bridges. The next day, we took a bus trip and had a city tour of Porto. Porto is a vital center of education, religion, and trade. It's called the City of Granite, which is used in many buildings. We passed the historic center, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We also passed a pillory where they would punish people publicly. It was a bustling city, and we saw many statues, and we also saw interesting homes with groupies. We went to the winery and, of course, had a nice tasting of wine. It's port wine. We saw barrels, and this was the Sandman Winery, one of them. It was formerly a monastery, so we had monks as our guide. We saw very ancient vintages of port wine housed in separate old bottles, labeled and locked. The tasting was wonderful, and then Marie went outside and was able to see the view of barges loaded with barrels of wine. That afternoon we went to Biteos. It's a small river port. We had a wonderful dinner at the Alva Monastery. It dates back 1,000 years. We also saw a photo show and tasted green wine. The next day we visited Regua. It overlooks the Douro River and mountains as the background. It is the center of the wine region, and it's steeped in the wine-making culture. The headquarters of the Wine Institute. We toured Biteos Palace, which is richly appointed with furnishings and lovely gardens. We sampled wine in this tasting room, and the wine we tasted is a rosé. It's depicted in Biteos rose wine labels. At the ship, we had a presentation about the cork industry. The bottles of wine have corks, but cork is also used for purses, insulation, and shoes. It's a huge industry. And when we had traveled back to the ship, we had actually seen cork trees and we viewed Cork Wall. The next day, as we traveled to Barca de Alva, we were treated by Chef Raphael teaching us to make pastel de nata. It's a delicious pastry filled with cream sauce. Marie got to try making the shell. It was a fun time. We also toured the galley, and met all of the chef's helpers. As the ship passed almond trees, cherry, and olive groves, we were on our way to Castle Rodrigo. It's a medieval fortress listed as a national monument since 1922. The Jewish community established it to escape the Spanish Inquisition. This was the closest we got to a vineyard, and the grapes were delicious. We crossed the border into Spain to a medieval city founded by the Celtic tribe before the rise of the Roman Empire. It is called Salamanca. It is Spain's oldest college town, founded in 1134. We walked and visited to the Plaza Mayor and had a full day on our own seeing the sights. We passed plaques of icons from Spanish history. One was Columbus. Way up at the top of a building was a stork's nest. There are many of them around in the plaza. We went to the House of Shells, and we also just had a cold drink because it was 90-degree weather, and we just watched the people. The plaza was built in 1730, and students come there at night and sing and play music, not for tips though. We visited the university, which is Spain's oldest university, built in 1134. It is vacant now, however. There were many cathedrals and different shops at the plaza, and we decided not to buy any of the goodies because we didn't want any dessert, but they were certainly appetizing. We continued to view the Douro Valley with its terraced hillsides. All the vineyards are planted by hand, and when it's time for the grape harvest, the workers pick the grapes by hand and carry them down to trucks below, and then are transported down to the river in barrels. There are also almond and olive groves that share the hillside. There is only natural irrigation, which is very amazing. They were beautiful. We stopped at Penho, which is a sleepy town situated between the Douro and the Penho rivers. We visited a traditional Portuguese bakery. The baker awakes at 3 a.m. every morning to make the bread. It is one of the main industries in that town. We got to taste the bread, and we also visited the museum. At lunchtime, we were introduced to Portugal's Mr. Bean. He was our guide through the winery. He had many mannerisms of the British Mr. Bean, and it was amusing to watch. We had lunch, and then he took us on a tour of the winery. There were displays of men tramping on the wine and showed each step of making muscatel wine. We had a wonderful lunch and taste of muscatel wine and being serenaded by musicians. On our last day on the ship, Lila and I had another delicious buffet breakfast. Then we went to a peaceful town of Regua with its stunning mountain in the backdrop. It is proclaimed the center of the wine region. We toured the Lamego Cathedral, or Our Lady of Remedies, which dates back to the 18th century. We rode the bus up, but decided to walk down the 686 steps. All along the way down, we saw blue and white tiles that decorated the staircase. It was quite a hike down. Then we met Chef Raphael, and he took us to the nearby market. And in the fish market, he showed us a baby shark. We went to the meat market, also a fruit and vegetable stall. The lady at the vegetable stall was enthusiastically giving us figs to eat and wanting us to smell her tomatoes. We returned to the ship and went through our last of 5 logs. Lyle remarked, "Throughout the trip we had such a smooth sailing." Our maid's creation of and chocolate treat awaited us at the ship.